Translated, dirtbag. Let's see what you're worth. Grant Wexler's laugh sliced through the boardroom as he hurled the thick Chinese contract at Nia Brooks. The pages struck her janitor's cart and slid across the marble to her feet. Tell you what, he said, loud enough for the executives on speaker to hear. Translate this entire contract correctly, and I'll hand you $1 million myself. A few chuckled. The room went still, all eyes on her. He didn't know she could read every word, or that a single buried clause could collapse everything he'd built. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The executive floor gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights as Nia Brooks guided her cleaning cart down the empty hallway. Her footsteps echoed against marble floors that reflected a row of stern CEO portraits. All men, all expensive suits, all practiced smiles. Security supervisor Hank Doyle stood at his post, eyes narrowing as Nia approached the checkpoint. She cleaned this floor hundreds of times, but tonight felt different. The air crackled with tension. Badge, Hank demanded. She's clear for now, he reported into his radio, emphasizing the last two words. Through the glass walls of the conference room, Nia could see frantic movement. CEO Grant Wexler paced in his tailored suit, gesturing sharply. CFO Daphne Clean sat rigid at the table, manicured nails drumming against the polished surface. General Counsel Elliot Park shuffled through papers, his composure cracking. The translation service is backed up, Elliot said, tugging at his collar. They can't get to it until morning. The Asian market opens in 3 hours, Daphne snapped. We need this done now. Nia kept her head down, methodically moving her mop. The executives ignored her entirely until Grant's eyes landed on her uniform. A cruel smile spread across his face. Hey, cleaning lady, come in here. Nia felt every eye in the room as she entered. Grant stood at the head of the table beside a massive screen, showing a waiting video conference. What's your name? He asked, though her badge was clearly visible. Nia Brooks, sir. Well, Nia. His tone dripped with condescension. How would you like to make some real money tonight? He waved dismissively at her cart. Translate this Chinese contract, and I'll give you $1 million. He laughed, clearly expecting others to join in. Nia studied the document on the table. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. The first clause states that any relationship adjustment, which is actually a termination clause in disguise, triggers an automatic penalty of $50 million. The second page outlines a payment schedule that would drain company accounts through deliberately mistranslated terms. And there's a reference to a side letter not included here, one that appears to contain additional binding terms. Dead silence filled the room. Grant's smile froze. Daphne stared at Nia like she performed a magic trick. Elliot frantically scribbled notes. A voice crackled from the video screen. Did she say termination penalty? Stop the call, Grant ordered, his charm failing to mask the ice in his voice. Mr. Doyle will escort you back to your duties. As Nia turned to leave, she caught a reflection in the glass wall, small against the towering windows, but standing straight. Behind her, Grant's fingers drummed against the contract she'd just exposed. The heavy conference room door swung shut behind them. By midnight, Nia sat at her small kitchen table, a fresh notebook open before her. The $500 Grant had dropped on her cart lay untouched nearby, his insult made tangible. She began writing, her pen moving steadily. Mandarin characters took shape from memory. The hidden termination clause, the penalty triggers, the reference to that missing side letter. Her translation certification hadn't come easily. Years of study with her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Liu, drinking tea and practicing characters until her hand cramped. The woman had worked in international trade before retiring. They had spent almost 3 years translating together, business news mostly, until Mrs. Liu passed away. Nia had promised herself she'd make it mean something, used her savings to get formally certified, had good jobs lined up. Then layoffs came. Then her mother's cancer came back. Medical bills ate everything, and she ended up cleaning the same offices where she could have been translating. Her phone buzzed with a company-wide email from HR. Effective immediately, janitorial staff were restricted from executive floors during meetings. No exceptions. Badge permissions would be adjusted accordingly. The time stamp read 11:47 p.m. They weren't wasting any time rewriting the narrative, but they couldn't erase what she knew. She kept writing, each stroke a quiet act of defiance. Let them try to bury this. The morning sun hadn't risen when Nia pushed open the door of Mason's diner and slid into the booth across from Pastor Levern Price. "Tell me everything," Pastor Levern said, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Nia pulled out her notebook. "There's something wrong in that contract. The phrases about warehouse shifts and adjustment schedules. The way they wrote it. In Mandarin, these words together mean something's being hidden. How polite business language can mask ugly intentions." Pastor Levern studied Nia's face. "Baby girl, I hear you, but you need to protect yourself first. These people already showed you who they are. Whatever they're planning, it's bigger than one contract. The way they panic when I started translating. Document everything. Call me if anything feels wrong." That afternoon, at the employee entrance, Hank Doyle stopped her. Random security check. He grabbed her small backpack, turned it upside down over the polished lobby floor. Her lunch container cracked open. An apple rolled toward the entrance. Cleaning gloves scattered across the tiles. "Oops," Hank said flatly. "Better pick those up." Nia knelt to gather her belongings. When she stood, she kept her voice steady. "Thank you for your thoroughness." At the security desk, her badge scan made the screen flash red before accepting. Above her name, bold letters warned, "Security concern." Her phone was already recording in her pocket. They wanted her humiliated. Instead, she felt each moment crystallizing into evidence. The HR office felt colder than the rest of the building. HR manager Tessa Rowan sat with her practiced sympathetic smile. Elliot Park clutched a stack of papers. Hank Doyle blocked the door. They slid 2 documents across the desk, a thick NDA, and a severance offer that wouldn't cover 2 months' rent. "Signed today," Elliot said, "and we can all move forward without unnecessary complications." "People like you don't understand the stakes here," Tessa said softly. "This is a Fortune 500 company." "I understand perfectly," Nia replied, "but I'll need time to review these documents with my attorney." Hank pushed off from the wall. "Building has cameras everywhere, Brooks. Security footage can tell all kinds of stories." "Is that a threat, Mr. Doyle?" "Just explaining how things work. How they've always worked." Nia gathered her bag. Generous would be honoring the $1 million offer Mr. Wexler made in front of witnesses. She walked to the door. "I'll have my lawyer contact Mr. Park about those documents." Malik, the maintenance worker, pressed a folded paper into her hand as they passed in the hall. "Service tunnels," he muttered. "Security sweeps every 2 hours." She slipped the paper into her pocket without breaking stride. That evening in Renee Caldwell's office, the employment attorney spread her legal pad across the desk. Classic retaliation pattern. They're following the standard playbook. Isolate, intimidate, eliminate. But they didn't expect you to understand their contracts. "No," Nia said quietly. "They didn't expect me to exist in that room at all." "We document everything," Renee said firmly. "Every interaction, every policy change, every random check. This preservation letter demands they keep all security footage, emails, meeting notes, anything related to your case. Once they receive this, destroying evidence becomes legally dangerous." She wrote down a name and number. "I also know a federal investigator who handles corporate fraud. If you're right about the contract terms, this could be bigger than retaliation." In the maintenance corridor the next night, Malik led Nia through narrow passageways, pipes hissing steam overhead. At the executive floor printer station, Nia scrolled through the print queue. Chinese characters caught her eye. An email header, partially truncated. She raised her phone and captured several angles of the screen. The Mandarin file name contained a familiar pattern. The same coded language in the contract, but with new elements. References to adjustment protocols. And what looked like coordinates. A sharp click echoed. Fluorescent lights snapped on at the far end of the office. "Brooks," Hank's voice boomed. "I know you're up here." They slipped into a supply closet as footsteps approached. Through the thin door, radio transmissions crackled. They waited 2 minutes before Malik eased the door open, and they moved quickly through the maintenance corridor to the loading bay, slipping out through the evening air. Nia hurried down familiar streets toward the church hall, where lights glowed and people filed in carrying phones and papers. Some held children's hands. Others clutched medical bills or property records. When she walked to the front of the room, 100 eyes fixed on her. "They're moving something through our neighborhood." The words hung in the air, heavy with promise and threat. She had proof now, and more importantly, she had witnesses, people who refused to be invisible in their own community. After the meeting, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Federal investigator Jonah Briggs. Renee had given him her contact. "I've reviewed the preliminary materials," he said. "The translation discrepancies, the pattern of retaliation, the vendor documentation. It's compelling. I'd like to meet first thing tomorrow morning. Based on what I'm seeing, we could be looking at both employment retaliation and corporate fraud charges." Hope felt tangible for the first time since the contract incident. "I'll be there," Nia said. She didn't make it. The next morning, Hank stepped out from behind a column in the lobby, blocking her path. "System shows you're suspended pending investigation. Exit now, or I'll have to treat this as trespassing." Police officers entered through the revolving door. On the mezzanine above, Grant Wexler watched with cool satisfaction, like everything was proceeding according to schedule. In the back of the police car, Nia maintained her dignity. She recited translation certificate numbers in her head, focused on breathing steady, refused to let them see fear. A small TV mounted in the holding cell blared morning news. Her own face appeared on screen, beside bold text. "Disgruntled worker arrested. Accused of stealing confidential documents after being passed over for promotion." The world seemed to tilt sideways. They weren't just arresting her. They were rewriting her entire story, making her invisible again, but worse, making her wrong. Criminal. Around midnight, Renee Caldwell appeared at the processing desk, soup crisp as if headed to court. Emergency hearing. The judge wasn't impressed with her trespassing story, given your active employee status. Outside, Pastor Levern and Malik waited. Malik held out his phone, showing altered badge records, making it look like Nia's access had been revoked weeks earlier. Her banking app flashed red. Account temporarily frozen. They were trying to starve her out. "We don't panic," Renee said firmly. "We get what they can't spin away." That side letter and those internal emails showing intent. Min Shao, a certified translator with 20 years of court experience, arrived the next morning and reviewed every document with methodical precision. "This phrase here," she said, pointing to a dense paragraph. "They've used relationship adjustment instead of termination. It sounds softer in Mandarin, but the operational effect is the same. Your translation caught this exactly, Ms. Brooks." When Elliott Park released the company's official translation claiming Nia had misunderstood key terms, Min's expression hardened. This is deliberately deceptive work. They've taken advantage of Mandarin's contextual nature to strip away implications while maintaining literal accuracy. It's technically correct, but fundamentally dishonest. She began typing her formal rebuttal. Their mistake was assuming no one could challenge their expert. In a deserted restaurant parking lot that evening, Daphne Clean sat in her silver Mercedes with shaking hands. She pressed the numbers, blocking her caller ID. "I need to talk about Grant Wexler," she told Renee. "About the contract. Grant's going to make me take the fall when this collapses. He's already reassigning my staff, redirected my access, isolated me from key meetings. Why should I believe you're actually Daphne Clean? Because I know what a side letter is. And I know what Grant told us to do with the shipping records." Hidden behind a restaurant dumpster, Nia stood with Malik, watching the Mercedes through the gathering darkness. Files began arriving through the secure link. The side letter, dense with Mandarin text. Nia began reading, her whispered translation carrying to Malik, regarding special handling procedures for Category C shipments, using formal business terms. But the subtext was clear: how to move products through shell companies without raising flags. Then came email chains, meeting notes, tracking logs. In one message, Grant had written, "Ensure all languages appropriately sanitized before distribution. Certain shipments must remain outside standard logging protocols. In her car, Daphne had begun to cry. Quiet, controlled sobs. I told myself it was just business, just numbers on spreadsheets. But when I saw which neighborhoods they routed through, those are real families, real children. We'll need you to put that in your statement, Renee replied. The human impact matters. Grant can't just erase people who get in his way anymore. The courthouse hallway gleamed under fluorescent lights, its marble floors almost as pristine as the executive suite where it all began. Nia Brooks stood straight beside Renee Caldwell, while Mean reviewed her notes one final time. The elevator chimed and Grant Wexler emerged with a fleet of corporate lawyers, their shoes clicking against marble in perfect rhythm. Grant's smile seemed carved from ice. Inside the courtroom, Grant's lead attorney went straight for character assassination. Ms. Brooks repeatedly accessed restricted areas. She manipulated a casual comment about translation into baseless accusations. Renee rose slowly. Let's discuss unauthorized access. She played Nia's original badge approval for all floors, then displayed time-stamped screenshots showing how those permissions were altered after the contract incident. They didn't restrict her access because she was unauthorized. They restricted it because she understood too much. She cued the garage audio. Hank Doyle's voice filled the courtroom. Let's see how you like cleaning on your knees. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Mean took the stand, walking through the contract passages with calm authority. This phrase, they translated it as relationship adjustment. But in this context with these accompanying terms, it's clearly describing a termination clause with severe penalties. The consultant's version removes all the teeth. And you're certain of this interpretation? The judge asked. Absolutely. Ms. Brooks's translation was not only accurate, it likely saved the company from a devastating financial trap. Jonah Briggs presented next, laying out a timeline connecting the contract language to suspicious shipping patterns and shell company structures. These weren't random business decisions. The language choices revealed deliberate attempts to conceal certain activities. This is absurd, Grant suddenly burst out, rising from his chair. She's a janitor who got lucky with some basic phrases. She should know her role instead of... Mr. Wexler. The judge's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down. Grant sat, his charm cracking into visible anger. Since you're eager to speak, the judge said, did you or did you not publicly challenge Ms. Brooks to translate this contract? It was clearly a joke. Yes or no? Yes. Did you offer a specific sum for this translation? Through clenched teeth, $1 million. And was this contract urgent? We were in the middle of a board call. So you needed an immediate translation during a critical negotiation, and Ms. Brooks provided one that proved accurate. Grant's silence spoke volumes. This court is ordering expanded subpoenas for all communications related to this contract, the judge announced. Given the evidence of potential criminal activity, I am referring these materials to federal prosecutors for review. Grant's pen snapped in his hand, leaving an ink stain like a bruise on his pristine notepad. That practiced, powerful smile, the one that had launched careers and crushed opposition, finally shattered completely. The boardroom looked different in the daylight that followed. Sunlight streamed to the wall of windows, reflecting off the polished table, where Grant Wexler's nameplate once commanded attention. 2 security officers stood by the door, not to intimidate Nia Brooks, but to escort Grant when he arrived. Mr. Wexler, Interim CEO Barbara Halloway began, the board has concluded its emergency review. Given the evidence presented in the ongoing federal investigation, we are exercising our authority to remove you from your position, effective immediately. Grant's smile crystallized into something brittle. This is absurd. One disgruntled. Your badge and company devices. Barbara gestured to the waiting HR representative. The security team will escort you to clear your office. Down the hall, Hank Doyle was simultaneously being informed of his termination. His file now included evidence of unlawful searches, manipulated access records, and coordinated intimidation. His own recorded threats had sealed his fate. Barbara turned to Nia. The settlement agreement is finalized. Full reinstatement if you want it, though I understand you have other plans. A public apology on record. policy overhaul under third-party compliance monitoring. She allowed herself a small smile. And of course, the financial settlement matching the original $1 million offer, plus damages. Nia nodded, thinking of the community center where Pastor Levern was already preparing space for the new scholarship program. The funds would support language training, legal education, and worker rights advocacy. Not just a single victory, but a permanent pipeline for change. Min had already agreed to help structure the language certification courses. Renee would oversee the legal components. Malik had successfully leveraged the scandal to secure stronger union protections, ensuring future workers would have real defense against institutional abuse. That afternoon, Nia walked the marble corridor one last time. Her footsteps echoed differently now. No cart to push, no forced silence to maintain. She passed the supply closet where Hank had once cornered her. Now, just another door. The security desk where her badge had been scrutinized stood empty during shift change. Near the executive suite, she caught a reflection in the glass walls. The same person who had mopped these floors now stood straight-backed in professional attire, holding the power to reshape opportunities rather than beg for them. Not because someone had rescued her, because she had refused to be erased. A cleaning crew member pushed a cart past, and Nia nodded in acknowledgement. The woman nodded back, without lowering her eyes. One of the first benefits of the new union contract was that maintenance staff could look directly at executives without fear of reprimand. The portraits on the walls would be changing soon. But more importantly, the invisible barriers, the ones built from quiet cruelty and systemic dismissal, had already begun to crumble. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. On the screen, I've picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.